said right there. So I want to talk about, in my opinion, what works best with doing social media in sports, especially if you're on a team perspective, like I am doing the social media account for FC Tucson. Biggest one is you want to be personable. No one wants to just read an RSS feed on Twitter, because that's what you have RSS feeds for. You want to be personal. You're the voice of whatever team you're representing. If someone wants to know something about tickets, guess what? You're the one that's going to tell them, because they're going to go to the Twitter, hey, FC Tucson, where can I get tickets for the Desert Diamond Cup? Well, I have to tell them, you can go online, call this number. If something bad happened at a game, God forbid, my child didn't get this and he started crying. Well, you're the one that has to respect, be the public face for your organization, tell them, whatever. But if all you're doing is doing content where it's like, this was the score of the game, we have game time at this time, Mike Jones scored 3 goals. People aren't going to go to your team. They're not going to care about it because it's just stuff that they can find out online anyway. So that's why you got to try to be personal with your Twitter. Now for me, and with smaller teams, the best advice I ever got was if you do 10 tweets or post 10 pieces of content, 9 of it should be about something other than your team. That ratio changes depending on how big your team is. Yankees are not going to post anything about the Red Sox. Everything will be about the Yankees. But you know what? You got a cat wearing a Yankees hat, people will look at that. FC Tucson, we can't do that. We have to try to make a name for ourselves, and to do that, what I try to do is insert us into the soccer conversation. So while some tweets will be about what we're doing in our practices, how we're preparing for our PDL season, a lot of tweets that I do is things that I find, telling stories I find on the internet that just have to do with soccer. And that just have to do with soccer. On the blogs related to the teams that are be coming into the MLS, if I see something about the LA Galaxy that's interesting, I post it on there. Oh, check Galaxy fans, check out what they're saying about this. That gets us into the conversation, that gets our name known, so that people can say, oh yeah, those are the guys that produce pretty good content. And then once our season starts, and we can do a little more of our content, that ratio might change a little bit. But the key is to be personal. You want your account to be a living, breathing thing. And that's what we try to do with FC Tucson. We make that account, the team is almost like a person itself. And I think those are the best Twitter accounts because people, you follow people. You don't just follow robots. You follow interesting people, your friends that tell funny jokes, that tell funny stories. You want to have the same thing with your Twitter feed when you're doing Twitter or Facebook. Whenever you're on social media, you want to have that be a little bit informal to be interesting. Another one is you want to be interactive. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that you can talk to people, answer their questions, having a conversation about soccer. But you also want to be interactive. Last week we got like 5 free sack packs from Sporting Kansas City. Not all of us were going to take it. So I decided I'm going to have a contest to give this away because it'll draw attention to our Facebook page, draw attention to our Twitter, and it's just a good way to interact with fans. So I found a goofy-looking picture of this old coach and player giving the peace sign, looked totally awkward, and just had a caption contest. Hey, best caption wins a free sack pack. We had 61 comments just on that picture alone. I think the most comments we had on a post before that was like 10 or 15. Maybe you might be thinking, what does that mean? Well, that's just more eyes, more clicks, more likes. Because of something like that we did, now we have a lot more people in Kansas City, Sporting Kansas City fans, they're now following us. They're going on Twitter and say, hey, go to FC Tucson for information about what Sporting Kansas City is doing. And then hopefully, ideally, we become the favorite team, PDL team, of someone in Kansas City. They have their favorite MLS team, we can become their favorite PDL team. So you want to be interactive with people. You want to give people the idea that they're part of the sports family. And once we have a more stable roster, we'll be doing a lot more stuff with our own players. Q&A with players. I see this a lot with the team Twitters. Using Yankee example. Okay, today Derek Jeter's going to take over our account, and you can ask him any question you want. So people will, you have to, follow us and ask questions. So you'll have Derek Jeter there on your team Twitter, answering questions that come their way. So these are the kind of things that They build your brand, they make people love your team more, and it just, again, it allows you to tell compelling stories, which again, this is, the overall theme here is you want to be interesting, you want to be compelling. The last thing is, you also want to be smart. Now in my situation, I'm working for FC Tucson. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing is that I do things that are in the best interest for FC Tucson. It changes a little bit depending on what you're doing, but sometimes, and it's happened to me before, it's a little bit too personal, a little too informal, and that could hurt your team in the long run. For instance, the Women's Pro Soccer League, WPS, got shut down for 2012. Big story, because one of their owners is just a crazy person. I mean, look at Dan Borislav, look it up. The guy is nuts off his rocket. And I shouldn't be saying that, but I'm going to because I've already said it on Twitter. So I did a story. So I look on there and I see a blog post from one of the girls that was on the team. The team was called Magic Jack. She wrote about the inside story about what actually went down. That's an interesting story. Any normal soccer fan would want to read that. That's very interesting. The thing that I wasn't thinking about, something that one of my owners told me, was that, yeah, maybe FC Tucson will never do business with Dan Borislav because the guy is toxic, especially in the soccer world. But who's to say that somebody else we try to do business with is a good friend of Dan? That could hurt our relationship in terms of a sponsorship in the future. And those are things that you got to think about. Even as you're trying to be personable, trying to be like a person, you still can't be because you're still part of a brand. You're still part of a team. And even if you're not in charge of your team's Twitter, let's say you're just in the communication department for your team. A lot of times, you may notice this, but if you're following somebody for a team, in a lot of cases, in their bio, they'll say, thoughts are my own, not of whatever team you're working for. So people understand, okay, this isn't the thought of the team, but you still have to be aware of those kind of things. You can't, do the normal things you normally do, because, you go on social media, you make fun of somebody that misses a shot, you share a video. Another example, I shared a video of a guy who missed a wide open shot. It was Robbie Finley. Guy's maybe 2 feet away from the open net. You know how big soccer nets are. Kicks it, boom, right over the crossbar. Terrible miss. And normally you'd be like, oh, look at this fool. So I tweeted that through our account. I didn't say look at this fool, but I said, oh my God, that's a terrible miss. And again, my owner tells me, you never know when, for whatever reason, maybe that player will look to sign with FC Tucson. And then he sees, oh, well, they were making fun of me. Or if that guy had been on an MLS team, this was an international game, that MLS team will say, well, you guys post pictures of us in a bad light, maybe we're not going to want to do business. You always have to be aware of these things. Now, the teams put up a blooper video, and then you can put it up there because the team already put it up there. But these are the kind of things that you have to be aware of, even as you're trying to be an individual. So, talk about the positives of social media. What makes social media in sports great? The first thing, behind-the-scenes access. Journalists are now using social media more to give you an immediate post-game reaction from players and whatever. There's just certain places that journalists are never going to go. And that's the best thing with teams using social media in sports because they can go anywhere. It's the team. They can be in the locker room. They can be waiting in line to get on a plane. Some of the best content you see are, your quote-unquote behind-the-scenes access because that's what fans want. Fans want to be a part of the team because a lot of us who play sports have